Hi everybody, thanks for watching. Nick here for CreationArmy TV. Today we'll be talking about symbols. If you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel. I've got lots of other great tutorials, and I'll be using some of the principles from those other tutorials in this video today, so hopefully you don't get too lost, but I'll try to simplify along the way. So what are symbols? Symbols are a great way to repeat your vector artwork throughout your document. And so it's a great time saver, no matter what you're designing or drawing in Illustrator. You might be making a website, or you might be drawing an American flag, or you might be making any kind, swarm of bees, like I mentioned in other videos. And you'll realize that you make one piece of artwork and it is repeated all over the place on your document. It might be repeated just one time, but it might be repeated 5,000 times, especially if you're making, like I said, a bunch of bees or some butterflies, or maybe cows in a field, and they're all identical basically, and you want to just make a change to one piece of artwork, and all of the cows or all of the bees in the field or all of the stars, like you see here, will all take on that same change. So let's talk about what symbols are and how to make them. Symbols start out as simple vector shapes. You can also do raster images, but we won't get into that in this video. What I've done here is I've just made a regular star using the star tool, and you'll notice that it has its regular control points. I'll just zoom in on it. It's got its control points, got its anchor points. I can do whatever I want, to this star, and you can make this into a symbol in 3 ways. And to do that, first of all, make sure your symbols palette is open. It's right here, and if it's collapsed right now in whatever workspace you're using, it's represented by a little club symbol, like on a deck of cards. It's also here, window symbols. So have your symbols palette open, and you can just take your vector artwork, and it doesn't have to be one thing. It can be a group, or it can be text as well, and just drag it right into the symbols palette, and that's what it looks like when you do that. And this little panel pops up, and it asks you what you want to name your symbol. I usually give it a name, star, 1 or something like that. I don't worry about type, movie clip, or graphic. This refers to if you're going to be using this piece of artwork in Flash, so we won't worry about that in this video. Enable guides for 9 slice scaling is also something that is more advanced and beyond the scope of this video. This refers to keeping graphic styles intact for user interface. We won't talk about that. And then align to pixel grid is something that you probably will have to click if you're, like I said before, if you're designing for a website. It would be a good idea to check that, but I leave these unchecked for now. I usually just give it a name and just hit OK. And I like to leave the registration point in the center. I've already put this in, so I'm just going to hit cancel for now, but you're going to hit OK. And what you end up with is something that looks like this. It's identical to the original, parent shape, but it has this little black crosshair in the center. That's the registration mark. And so this star's been made into a symbol. All right, and you'll also notice that when I hit A, which is direct select, I don't have control points anymore. Let's go to wireframe view. They look identical, except this one has a little registration mark in the center. This tells me in wireframe view that this is a symbol. So how come I can't edit any of the control points? That's because this is basically contained artwork, and it's the vector artwork, the original, is contained here in the symbol palette. Oh, I said a minute ago that there are three ways to make a symbol. Number 1 is to drag it in and then give it a name. The other is to take your original artwork and hit new symbol here on the symbols palette itself. And there was a third way, but it's not coming to mind right now, so I apologize for that. So the best way is usually just to drag it right in. So after you do that, then you have your symbol right here on your artboard. So what can you do with this exactly? How do we use symbols? Well, if you just take this artwork and you just drag it and duplicate it, then you now have an instance of the symbol, and that just means copies. So I have multiple instances of my symbol here. If I select them all, you see there a little registration mark on all of them, and in wireframe they all look like that. So no matter what you do to this symbol, whether it's rotating it or scaling it down or reducing its opacity or giving it a custom appearance, custom appearance is one of my videos. These are basically all children of the original parent symbol, which was this original star. So what if these symbols, these stars, aren't looking right to me? How do we change them? There's a few ways to change the original symbol. Number one is to make the change to the original artwork. So if I take this original control point, remember this is my raw vector shape, and I move it over this way, and I say, okay, that's how I want my star to look. Now all I have to do is click and drag this and hold the Alt or Option key and drag right over the star symbol right here. And what that does is it does a universal replacement of the new artwork, of the symbol instances with the new artwork, which is this skewed star. So I'll just release my click, and now they're all updated instantaneously. They all reflect that transformation. Let's undo that one time. The other way to edit a symbol is in isolation mode. Now, there are definitely three ways to do this. Number one, if you have Illustrator CS5 or later, you'll click on a symbol, any one of them. It doesn't have to be this one here, but it can be this one. And all you have to do is hit Edit Symbol up here where my mouse is at, almost at the top left extreme side of the screen. If you edit symbol, if you click that, you'll go into an isolation mode where everything sort of dims except for the symbol, the parent symbol itself. And also, please note, in my transform palette, note that this symbol's registration point is at an X and Y value of 0 and 0. Your original artwork will always reside at 0 and 0, and that is regardless of its position or its address on the artboard itself. Just keep that in mind. It comes into play later. So once you're in this isolation mode, notice that I can't touch anything else besides this symbol. So if you just make your change, then do whatever you want, and maybe I'll add a circle right here, a black circle. So I'm in isolation mode, and in my layers palette, I can see that I have my star and the little black circle. Once you're done, all you have to do is either hit escape or double click on the artboard. You can also, if you hit tab, I'm going to hide all my palettes. You'll notice up here in the top left that Illustrator's telling me I'm currently editing the isolated symbol, which is called star symbol. And if I hit this little back arrow here that's pointing to the left, I can exit symbol editing mode. So there's hit this button, hit escape, or double click on the artboard itself, where my mouse is here. And we are back to regular vector editing mode. And notice that all of the children now are skewed, and they have that little circle that I added. So if you realize you made a mistake and that circle looks silly, or if you want to move it closer or something, remember you can just click on the symbol, you can hit edit symbol, or you can double click on the symbol itself, and that will tell Illustrator that you want to go into symbol editing mode, which we're in now once again. So I'll make the change that I want, and maybe move this arm down. And again, I'll hit escape, and now all of the children are updated. The third way to edit a symbol is to come over to the symbols palette, hover on the star symbol itself, and double click it. Once you do that, you'll go into another type of isolation mode. Notice that everything now has disappeared, and all that we see is the outline of our artboard and the parent artwork. So if I'll zoom in on the star itself, I'll make the change. Let's say I get rid of that. I'll move this leg down here, and I'll zoom out a couple of times. I'm happy with the changes I've made, and again, I can just hit escape on the keyboard, and now all of the symbols are edited. So it's up to you which isolation mode you want to go into when you're editing your symbol. Sometimes you have a very complex piece of artwork. You want to go into this complete isolation mode, hide everything, so that you can carefully zoom in and see and make your change. Sometimes you want to just isolate this way so that you can still see. It's up to you. It's personal preference. So Illustrator comes with a great amount of symbols. I just showed you how to just make a basic symbol, and we'll get back to making your own. But please note that Illustrator, if you, especially this is going to be helpful for you if you have to do a very quick piece of artwork for a client, and I'm talking if you have a half hour to do it and you need to throw something together really fast, like a birthday invitation or a greeting card or something. Please note that every version of Illustrator comes with a set of built-in symbols, and here's how to access them. From the symbols palette, there's a button in the top right corner where you can open symbol library, and these are all built in to Illustrator. The other way to do it, the new way to do it, I think since CS6, is they put in this little library button down here. It's the same thing as what I just showed you. So let's say I open up this arrows palette. A symbols palette will open here in the middle of your screen, and you can just lengthen it down here. Now these were all made by the makers of the program, and you can just, to use them, you can either drag it directly into your symbols palette, or you can just drag it right onto the artboard. And note when you drag it onto the artboard that it's immediately added to your symbols palette. Also, one thing to note, there's two little arrows down here on this palette. You can sort of click through, and if you're making that birthday card invitation or that birthday card, you have your cake and your balloons and everything here, and these are included with the program, and you can use them. Now what if you drag out one of these symbols and you're not happy with the color of it, you want to make a change? For instance, this cake or this arrow. To do that, once again, it's just like editing the star that I just created a few minutes ago. Just double click it to edit the symbol, and let's say I'm going to delete this. Let's say I had 2 or 3 cakes throughout on this birthday invitation I was making. In fact, I'll make it really quick. You're invited. All right. Sample that text. Maybe make it pink. Arc it. Bear with me here. All right. This is just thrown together super fast. So here's your birthday card, and you want this cake to be down in the corners, and maybe you want them to be here as well. So now I have 4 instances of this cake, but I realize, oh well, the color's not so nice. I want the cake to be pink as well. This is a little girl's birthday party. I don't want a brown cake. I want a pink cake. So it's very easy to do. And all you have to do is edit one cake and they'll all be updated. So you would double click into this symbol. Now I'm in isolation mode editing this cake symbol. You would come in and make all the changes you want to make. Let's say I grab all of these and I recolor them with global adjust. Don't worry if you're lost. This is a very quick, let's say, more saturated. I haven't done a demo yet on color adjustment, but it's very easy. So let's say we're trying to go for a pink cake, I think I said. You can make it bright like this. And so after you make your changes to this cake, again, you would hit escape or double click on the artboard, and you would be finished, updating your artwork. And now all 4 cakes are children of the parent cake, which is right here in my symbols palette. And then you can do this same thing with the balloons. Also note, this is weird, but when you're done editing a symbol, Illustrator always puts your layer selection. When I hit escape and I come out of symbol editing mode, Illustrator always puts your layer select. It always selects the very top layer in your document for you. And that could be annoying. But please note, when you're done editing your symbol, you come back to your document, your artwork. You have to click on the layer you're working on once again. I don't know why, but I wish they would change it. So anyway, now you can drag out your balloons, you can put them here, and there you go. And again, you're not happy with this balloon, and there's 48 balloons all over your invitation. So again, you'll just have to make the change to the one balloon, and all of the rest of the balloons will follow suit. So there's lots of nice built-ins to Illustrator. So let's talk about creation of symbols. Making your own. I just did it a few minutes ago with the star symbol. But let's say you're designing an interface for a website, and at the top of the website you have your home, about, your work, FAQ, and contact buttons. Using the symbols palette is great for this because you might know, or you might plan that all of these buttons would basically be the same size and shape, and they would all look the same. So really you just have to make one piece of artwork. Here I made a rounded rectangle and dropped it into the symbols palette. It's right here and it says web button. I gave it that name. And then I use that symbol here and here and here, and then I just used the text tool to just write the word home and about and so on. But what if I realize that the button isn't big enough, or what if I want to round only the bottom corners but not the top corners? Well, it's easily editable. You can just double click on the symbol, or you can double click on any one of the symbol instances and make your change. Let's go in and edit this one. So we're in isolation mode, and remember, we're back editing this pure black rounded rectangle. If we look at our appearance palette, this is a black fill and it has the round corners effect. I'm going to ditch the round corners effect, and I'm going to select these bottom two anchor points, and I'm going to pull the round corners icon until I'm satisfied with the way it looks. Now, if I believe they added that in CS6 or CC, where you can individually round corners. You can't do this if you're using CS5 or below, and I'm sorry for that. If you have a lower version of Illustrator, you'll probably want to use the rounded rectangle tool itself, and then maybe cut the rectangle itself to make your change. But it's very convenient if you're using CC and above. So you make your change to your symbol. I'm going to zoom out a couple of times, and now when I hit escape, you'll see that all of these buttons will now look like this. And now they are fully updated. So now these look more like tabs that are hanging down from something, and this is the parent symbol. So great for use when you're designing for a website or buttons or anything like that all have to have identical shapes. And these buttons themselves have a complex appearance. Let's look at our appearance palette. It says symbol, graphic style number 4. I also used a saved graphic style. It's two fills. One is this solid white fill, which is the outside of the symbol, and the inside, which is this sort of faded white, is a white fill that's been pulled in with the offset path effect, -3 pixels, and it's been screened back in opacity to 30%, and the entire symbol has been given the property knockout. Now, if you haven't already checked out my videos on the appearance palette, graphic styles, or knockout, I would highly recommend watching those now, because those can really help you out in conjunction with using the symbols palette. So you can make non-destructive artwork and apply universal changes using appearance, graphic styles, etc. I'm going to zoom out one more time and show you this bee example. I keep talking about this swarm of bees. Well, what if we make one bee? Let's look at him in wireframe. So he's just made up of some circles, some other primitives, and this little yellow stripe here is just clipped into the shape of his body, and I made a wing, and that's that same graphic style that I just used on the web buttons to make his wings. So we've got our cute little bee right here, and to make a swarm of bees, I turn him into a symbol by dragging him into the symbols palette, and then later on I can just make as many bees as I want to. I used the symbol spray tool, which I believe is Shift S, is the universal keyboard shortcut for that, but it's located here on the tool palette. And when you use the symbol spray tool, you have to first select a symbol, and then you can just click and drag, and notice how all these little instances get sprayed or basically multiplied onto the artboard. And what I did here was I just used a lot of the extra tools that come with symbol spray. I'll get to these in some other video, but all of these bees here are children of the parent bee symbol, and they cannot be, you cannot Notice how I'm in isolation mode here, but I'm editing this group of bees. I can't edit the symbol itself in this mode. I'm gonna hit escape. To edit the bee, like if you realize that the yellow isn't the right color on the bee, or that you want to make the eyes smaller or whatever, you do have to click on the symbol itself, or here in the symbols palette, or click on the parent artwork, which is here on the artboard. So I'll do that now, and I'll click on his little stripe, and I'll make it orange. It's a blend, and I'll shrink down his eye a little bit. Maybe I'll make this one bigger, make him a weird looking bee. And as we zoom out, notice we're still in isolation mode. Now I'll hit escape, and now all of the bees are updated to reflect the parent artwork. So it's very convenient. All right, so here's a more complex example of symbols. This tank wheel is basically nothing but symbols. We go to isolation mode, and you'll see that it's only just a few shapes, but everything in here is a symbol. So using symbols is great for even making complex artwork, because you might realize later on that you want to change one thing and have it reflected on all of these different instances, and you might be using this tank wheel at a dozen times, and you don't want to go through on 12 different tank wheels and make all of your changes, or copy or paste or anything like that. You just want to make a change to one piece of artwork. So how did I make this tank wheel? Let's take a look. It's made up of these three basic shapes: a circle, a hexagon with a complex appearance, and then this rectangle. All right, so what did I do with these? Well, I just dragged this circle into the symbols palette, and here it is, gray symbol, right? Or I'm sorry, gray circle. To rename a symbol, just click on symbol options located right here in the symbols palette, and this panel pops up again. Let's name it gray circle. This is the hexagon or bolt that's used throughout, so I just dragged that into my symbols palette, and again, I forgot to give it a name. I like to give my symbols names because when I'm doing complex illustrations, this palette fills up really fast, and it's nice to have names that make sense for things. So let's name this bolt, and then this part right here is like the gear tooth on the tank wheel. So I'll just drag that into the symbols palette and name it gear tooth. There we go. So I have my three symbols set up. All right. Right now they're just raw vector shapes, but when you drag them in, you'll notice that they now have that registration symbol in the middle, the registration mark in the center. That's what this little white crosshair is, and you'll know that this is a symbol, not vector artwork. So how did I make this wheel? Let's take a look at how I made this. I'm going to expand the layer palette, and we'll take a look at how it's constructed. The first thing is I dragged this tank tread out onto the artboard, and then I gave it a bulge. I basically gave it a warp effect. Warp, bulge. Let's move this out of the way. And I preview checked, and notice how it's bulging horizontally. I want it to turn it on vertical so that it bulges out that way. So that looks decent, I guess. All right, so that's one change I made to it. I'm going to also give it the transform effect. I'll hit effects, distort and transform, transform. And the reason I'm doing this is because I want multiple copies that are rotated in place. There we go. And now it's starting to look like gear teeth. So 5 copies. So in this panel right here, to get a perfect rotation, I'm going to write 360 divided by 6. 360 divided by 12. There we go. So they don't overlap. And I hit OK. Now I'm going to drag out this simple circle. Everybody knows that you can just hit L and make an ellipse. That's fine. But for this example, I'm using a simple circle as a symbol. And I'll just make it large, and I'll center it with the gear teeth. And you can just barely see it now, but if I make it larger, there it is. And now we'll group these two symbols together. Here's what it looks like in wireframe. So after I group these, you'll see group and contents in the appearance palette. Now I'm going to take one of these complex appearances that I have saved in the graphic styles palette. I'll apply it to the symbol, and remember to drag the contents below these two fills. And that's how I came up with this shape here, and so on and so on and so on. This circle is the original circle symbol. This circle here inside, this one here, this one here, these are all copies of the symbol. And of course the hex bolt is here, and it has a transform effect to send it around the hub of the wheel, I think 12 times, something like that. So this entire wheel is built with symbol shapes. And if you ever change your mind and go, hey, that hex bolt isn't looking right to me, you can always double click on the symbol, make the changes that you want to make. Maybe it's too shiny for your taste, so maybe I'll change this gradient to something maybe dark gray, like that. So let's zoom out and hit escape or whatever, and the change is immediately reflected here on your new artwork. So that's great. I've made my tank wheel. How do I actually use this on a tank drawing? Well, what I like to do is take all of this artwork, which is made up of symbols, and I will actually make this artwork a symbol. This is called nesting your symbols. So I'm going to go ahead and do that right now. I'll drag it in to the symbols palette, and I'll let go of my click, and I'll name it tank wheel. Enter. Alright, so now nothing happens. Now notice in wireframe view it still sort of looks the same, but now this entire piece of complex artwork is no longer really editable here on this artboard, but it is when you double click the symbol here. You go into an isolation mode and you can make the changes you want. So this symbol has symbols inside of it. That is called nesting your symbols. And how can we use that? I'll hide this layer and I'll expose this. Now I drew this tank earlier, and we all know that tanks have these identical wheels that make up its tread area. So to edit this tank and use this, put this symbol to use, I'm just drag this symbol instance out onto the artboard, right from the symbols palette, right out onto the artboard. And of course it's too big, so I'll shrink it down. I'll put it in place. Just put your tank wheels where they have to go. And I'll put one here near the back, and then of course I want maybe some smaller copies here and here. So there are 4 instances of the tank wheel that are in place, and I'm not going to add the tread now. I only want to illustrate that you have to make one tank wheel and use it repeatedly. So if you look at this and you go, well, I don't know if I want those little circle bolts going around the outside perimeter. All you would have to do to remove those is edit your symbol of the original tank wheel and grab this circle, which I sent around with the transform effect, and delete it. And now, after you come out of symbol editing mode, you'll see that each one of your symbols, which are children of the parent original tank wheel, now reflect that change. So it's very easy and very convenient. So especially if your client comes along and goes, I don't like how many hex bolts there are, can you reduce those? All you'd have to do is make your change to one instance, or the parent artwork, again by double clicking it here in the symbols palette. So it's very convenient, and I encourage you to use symbols in your workflow. It's a lot like the assets that you would edit if you were in Flash, and it's a lot like pre-comps in the world of Adobe After Effects. So thanks for joining me for this video. I know I went on kind of long here, but the symbols palette can really help you with a number of applications. So I encourage you to use it. Again, always please subscribe to my channel. Please check out some of my other videos, especially appearance, graphic styles, art brushes. You can learn a lot. So thanks very much for joining us. I'm Nick with CreationArmy TV. See you next time.